We have 25 participants, 32, 37. Wow. Good afternoon. We have 85 participants, counting, 91, 94. Good afternoon, Marvin, Early, Victor, Jen, Patrice, Julian. Aiko, good afternoon, Alan. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a learning session on coaching in times of uncertainty. Okay, this is being brought to you by the Philippine Society for Talent Development. I am Luz Mercurio, and I will be your anchor today. Last April, we gathered 60 volunteers and formed a task force called Oplan Hope, or Hang On People Enablers. We created different committees and had specific programs set to help HR and learning professionals, including educators, by the way, to cope, to lead also, and upskill during this time of pandemic. And we really want to live our mission, which is, of course, we learn, we grow, we transform together. Let me just check who joined us. Natalie, Alona, Romel, Christina, good afternoon. Christina's from Bulacan. We have Romel from Rizal, Cainta, good afternoon. Raul, good afternoon. From Albay. Wow. So before we formally start, let's have a quick demographic check. We have 3 questions for you. Okay, so the first question is, what type of talent development practitioner are you? So soft skill trainer ka ba, technical trainer, educator, coach, mentor, HR admin, manager, executive, consultant. And then the next question is, where are you connecting from? From Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. And then, is this your first time in PSTD Learn from Home series? Yes or no? So we have Nak Monsera to assist us with the poll. In a while, we will give you the result of the profile of those who will be joining us in this afternoon, who are with us actually. We have 137 participants now. Welcome po, good afternoon. From Pampanga, Cliff, good afternoon. From Davao, Jessica. Hello, Manuel. Hello, Armida. Hello, Nerissa. Gina, hello. We have 25 viewers from FP. So let's see the result. Okay, so you have 43 educators, 43% educators, and we have 11% from HR, 10% managers and executives. And then most are from Luzon. Thank you for those who joined us from Mindanao. And we hope we'll have more from Visayas in the next webinars. Of course, we're happy that 78% of you are joining us for the first time. Welcome po sa inyong lahat. Thank you. And we give you the purpose of Oplan Hope. Now, the main objective of Oplan Hope is really to support the Philippine learning community as we cope with the present crisis. And of course, we also want to sustain PSTD being a non-profit organization through paid webinars. We also provide you, of course, the free webinars every week practically. Now, as you can see here, we have already offered 42 classes from our flagship program called Learn from Home series. So we've had, I think, more than 40 international and local speakers, thought leaders who gave us good information and latest updates on becoming digital learners and digital leaders. We have 12,299 live Zoom attendees all over the country with more than 200,000 video views in Facebook. Thank you very much for those who have been actively connecting with us and learning with us. And for those of you 70+% first time joining us, you can take a good look at the previous webinars we've had through this particular Facebook page, facebook.com/mypstv.com. And towards the end of the week, we will be very happy to give you more learnings through what we call Chillax with PSTD. It's chill conversations, actionable insights. And this will be all about giving you a recap on the major learnings from the week. We have had 3 webinars, mostly 2. And then at the end of the week, it's more of like you having coffee with us, joining subject matter experts in a relaxed and open kwentuhan format, and it's Taglish. And this Saturday, 27, we'll have Cecile Terrible, who will be our moderator. She's the EVP and COO of Club Balay Isabel. But actually, she was a very active learning director of big companies like Abbott and also Amcor Anam. She will have as panelists Rowena Subido, first Senior Vice President and Group Head of HR Group Head for HR of RCBC. And then we have Angela Valenzuela, Talent Development and OD Manager of Petron Corporation. So based on your request, we also have sessions around mentoring, and that's gonna be June 25 at 2 p.m. with Maribel Aglipay. And for those of you who are interested to learn more about how to manage emotions through change and transitions, that's gonna be on June 30 at 2 p.m. and I will be the one facilitating the session. Now, we've been receiving a lot of interested queries about how to become members. You join us as members, as individual members, and even corporate members. 2.8 for individual, for corporate 5.6. And you can join a community of practice, particularly focused on learning more about digital learning. And we have a library. You can get resources from us. We will be helping you with all your needs as we move to the new normal and go to a scale of becoming more adept with when it comes to digital learning. Our website is www.pstd.org. All right. Now, each month, we set a theme for the Learn from Home series. Last May, we had resilience. And then this June, our theme is capacity and capability building. Now, the topic today is a great leadership enabler, and it's called coaching. So to tell you more about this, and to introduce our speaker this afternoon is our moderator, Mr. Lawrence Ko. Lawrence is the domain manager for IO Manila. He is the current area director of Toastmasters International for Makati, an active member of PSTD, and my teammate for the Learn from Home series. Hello, Lawrence, and good afternoon.
Thank you for the introduction, Luz, and good afternoon, everyone. Hello to the 230 plus and counting learners joining us today this afternoon here in Zoom. And I'm seeing a couple more, around 36 to 40 people in Facebook Live. Now, before I introduce our speaker, let me just go through a few house reminders. I have seen earlier that majority of you today are longtime attendees of our Learn from Home program. So this should be very familiar to you now. The first one would be attendees will be in mute to manage the flow of information, but worry not, because we have 2 ways for us to get your insights. The first one is if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A tab. So if you go to the control panel of your Zoom application, you're going to be seeing there the Q&A beside the chat button. The third one, in terms of our reminders, would be to use your chat tab for your comments and inputs. And our reminder is that you set your configuration from all panelists to all panelists and attendees, because we also want you to be able to share your insights with your fellow practitioners learners and participants in the Zoom session. And of course, I would also like to address the two most common questions that come up in our Q&A. The first one would be this: do I get a certificate for attending the Learn from Home session? The answer is yes. As long as you were able to stay in the Zoom session for at least 40 minutes and that you were able to respond to the post-evaluation form that we will send via the email that you have used during registration. So that's the first question. The second most common question that gets to the Q&A tab most of the time would be, do we get to have a copy of the presentation that the speaker used? The answer here is also yes. So our speakers were very generous and gave us their consent to share the gist of their presentation. So that's going to be included in the post-evaluation email that we're going to be sending you after the end of the Learn from Home session. All right. So I'm seeing now we're currently at around 270 participants and counting. Hello, everyone. I'm seeing also, I'm going to read this one from Guillermo Mayor. Good afternoon from Tuy, Batangas. So we're seeing a lot of people coming in from different parts of the Philippines, watching us and learning from home together with the Philippine Society for Talent Development. All right, our FB participants are now at around 50, 55. So we're currently at around a joint number of participants totaling around 320, 340. And I know we're going to max out this one up to 500. I'm pretty sure of that when we get to the start of the contents. Now, with those out of the way, I am very much looking forward to more of your questions on the Q&A tab. And if you have any insights, if our speaker would have any questions and you would have any anecdotes or you have any comments, please feel free to put them in the comments section. All right, and I know everyone is now ready. So let me now introduce our esteemed speaker for today's Learn from Home. He was the 2015 to 2017 president of the Asia Pacific Alliance of Coaches, the president and owner of Benchmark Consulting, founder of the Philippine chapter, and the country's first and only master certified coach of the International Coach Federation. To talk about the topic, coaching in times of uncertainty, friends in talent development, let's all welcome Mr. Julius Ordonez. Good afternoon, Julius.
Good afternoon, and thank you for that lovely introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Kumusta na po kayo lahat? I'm really so thrilled to be with you today. Imagine that. I mean, the participants are coming from the different parts of the Philippines. How did you do that, Luz? You're really doing a lot of wonders, for PSTD. Yeah, so the last time I had a speaking engagement with PSTD was like, I think that was 2001. So that was a long, long time ago. But whenever I am with PSTD, I feel so at home because of a number of reasons. Of course, number one is I have a lot of friends here. And second is, as I see now the participants here, there are a lot of people development practitioners. And that was, in fact, my first job in the corporate world. When I actually embarked on a corporate career, my first job was training and development and recruitment specialist. That was my first job. And prior to that also, and I feel so at home again with our educators here, because my first job after college was teaching. I was a high school teacher for 3 years. So there. And as I can see here, the introduction of Luz, you're extending help now to a lot of people, Luz. So thank you so much for being part of this undertaking, because this resonates very well with me. I can relate so well with this because actually, immediately after the ECQ was announced, my company, Benchmark Consulting, we offered immediately our pro bono one-on-one coaching services to companies. And to date, we actually have already coached close to 100 leaders and individuals, coming from different walks of life. And that is actually pro bono. And so today I'm going to share with you how coaching can help. So let me now share my screen. So there. So for today, I would like to share with you how coaching can help in times of uncertainty, like during this time of crisis, based on our experience coaching people during this pandemic, plus my 20 years of experience coaching people, from different nationalities and across industries, people who were dealing with different types of crisis. So for most of us, or maybe for all of us, this is probably the most, or this is probably the first time that we're experiencing the most overwhelming, unprecedented crisis, in our lifetime. And this has actually radically and drastically changed the way we live, the way we work, the way we interact, the way we communicate with people, the way we do things. And it also created a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, stress, anger, resentment, and many other negative thoughts and emotions. And while we are very hopeful that this too shall pass, we don't know exactly when it's going to end. But the question is, how can you, as a people development practitioner, help by using coaching to help people grow, develop, and actually bring about transformation in people during this crisis time? And so that is our topic for today. Now, first is, let's take a look at what are the challenges of people? The most common challenges that they're facing today. Probably relating back to your own experience, what are the challenges that you're grappling with, on a day-to-day basis? And may I invite you to the chat box and just write down, what are these challenges? It could be health concerns, could be family concerns, could be money concerns, or anything under the sun, related to the crisis. What are these challenges? Please be very, very specific. So please go to the chat box and then indicate there, what are your challenges? Or what are the challenges of people nowadays? All right, so let's wait for a while. And then Lawrence, do you see some things already in the chat box?
Yes. So there are a lot of people talking about health concerns, access to medical facilities and care, and of course, job security. At the tail end here, I'm also getting here finances, financial matters, and education for kids. So I think that would be the top three based on the responses so far.
Yes, and quite varied. As you said, there are a lot here, right? So it really varies from family concerns, health concerns, job security, work-related concerns, etc., etc. And you could just imagine the emotional and mental state of people, having to face all these challenges. And so it's important for us to take a look at that. What is the mental and emotional state of people nowadays when they face all these drastic changes that happen to their life? What is their mental and emotional state? And I would like to introduce to you a framework that we've been using in the last almost 20 years of our coaching, training, and consulting work, with organizations both here and abroad. And this framework is actually inspired by the work of Kubler-Ross, and this is validated by our own experience. And this framework is talking about what are the typical behaviors of people towards change. So based on our observation, and also as mentioned by this framework, is that, when there is change, the initial reaction of people is shock. There is disbelief. What? ECQ? What? Pandemic? Is this really happening? Totoo ba ito? There's that initial reaction. But at the same time, there's also fear, right? And so there is discomfort in this feeling. So people will naturally resist that feeling. And therefore, the natural tendency is for people to actually cushion that feeling. And they would like to actually live in their preferred reality and behave as if nothing is happening. And so this is what we call the denial stage. But at the same time, fear is also mounting. And as reality sets in, there you go. Change is now really changing the way we're doing things. And so some people, they are feeling angry about it. There would be sadness already, anxiety, at the same time that fear, etc., etc. All of these negative emotions, and the tendency is to probably blame the government, blame your boss, blame the company, blame anyone, and you go ranting. And therefore, the emotion is very high. Now, for some people, they cannot resolve that. They cannot manage it. And therefore, what happens there is, if they're not able to manage it, then they feel helpless. They feel hopeless to the extent of feeling depressed. And sometimes they feel so stuck, they don't know how to move forward. And this is what we call the valley of tears. The emotional energy is quite low, so much so that the person's feeling is that he is crippled, he is paralyzed. On the other hand, some people are able to actually confront the issue, and therefore they begin to manage it. And when they manage it, they begin to explore. What is required of me? What is the change all about? What is happening? And how should I adjust to this change? So there is some sort of experimentation. But as they experiment, they also feel the self-doubt. They become insecure because now they realize, kaya ko ba? Do I have the skills? And for some people, they cannot handle that. And therefore, they fall into the valley of tears again. But for some people, they actually survive the stage. This is the most critical stage because this is make or break. But as people survive this stage, then they begin to realize things. They begin to see the situation in a different light. They will have positive learnings out of it. And that's when they accept the situation. And when there is full acceptance of the situation, then they fully own the situation. And when they own the situation, then they take charge. They take action. They create opportunities and they create possibilities out of the situation. And they set goals. They reinvent themselves. They now begin to be committed, to something else, to something bigger. They can turn around the situation. On the other hand, the people who are in the valley of tears are still dwelling there. Now, does it mean then that when the person is in the stage of shock, denial, fear, anger, sadness, and anxiety, does it mean then that they're not taking action? The answer is no. They're still taking action because, of course, you're still expected to deliver, especially at work. You're still expected to survive, right? However, your action is a combination of positive and negative action. And most often than not, because you're clouded by those negative thoughts and emotions, then you are actually overpowered by a negative action. And therefore, this leads to quality issues at work. This leads to delays in decision-making, maybe performance gaps, performance issues, or maybe some animosities even in the relationship because you become irritable maybe in your interactions with your people. However, if you're able to actually reach the exploration stage and go for acceptance and full ownership of the situation, then the positive action escalates. And when the person reaches the full ownership and they take charge of the situation, then there is massive action. They can take massive action. On the other hand, those who are swimming in the valley of tears, there's inaction, meaning there's no action. But do they stay there forever? No. They don't stay there forever. For some people, yes, they stay there forever. But for some people, they can bounce back. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of, providing them the intervention, how to help them bounce back. And when they're able to bounce back, they can again explore and experiment and move on to acceptance and full ownership. So let's take a pause for a while and ask yourself, where are you in these typical behaviors towards what's happening now? Are you still in the stage of shock, denial, or maybe you're swimming in the valley of tears, or you have fully accepted the situation and now you're fully taking charge? Where are you? So may I invite you to go to the chat box again, and looking at this framework, take a look at, do a reality check. You know, in the name of self-awareness, where are you? So Lawrence, can we again check?
Hey, so
Yep.
again, please look at the slide here by Julius and then go to the chat. Where are you right now? So I'm seeing here quite mixed reactions and feedback from people. I'm currently seeing a lot of people in the acceptance phase, and then others are in realization and learnings.
There you go.
Still acceptance and realization. So that's going to be the
Yeah.
top two.
Do we have some people still in the anger, sadness, anxiety, or valley of tears?
Very, very few, if ever there are.
Okay, so that's good news, Lawrence. We have some hope.
Yes.
Yeah, so very nice. That's good news. Okay, so that's the first question. So where are you? Okay, and now let's take a look at, of course, the talents in your organization, meaning your employees, your leaders. Where are they? And these are the people we consider your coachees, you know, in your role as a people development practitioner. These are your coachees. So let's take a look at, where are your talents, or where are your coachees, or maybe your employees? So please go back to the chat box and let's see, are they also accepting the situation now, or have they fully accepted the situation? Are they now fully taking charge?
It's going to be a very, very good question. So people are taking their time. They're thinking about it.
No problem. And this is very important. This is really very important because, again, as a people development practitioner, you should have a strong sense of where the people are in your company or in your respective organizations.
Okay, so a lot of people here are saying accepting, adjusting, learning, and acceptance. So it's more or less the same with their self-evaluation and then the peers, the talents, or coaches.
Very nice. Okay, so that's another good news, Lawrence. At least people are moving forward. They are not stuck there, right?
I
And
agree.
so, yeah, and so the question is, regardless of where the people are, where does coaching come in? Because there will be people who might slide back to the valley of tears. You know, they might slide back to anger because that's how it works. Sometimes, you know, sometimes you assume, or maybe you know that you're already fully accepting it, but sometimes you're feeling the anger again, or the sadness, or even the anxiety. So it's like you're on a pendulum, and that's fine. So regardless of where the people are, so where does coaching come in? So the good news is coaching comes in, you know, in all these stages. Now, it depends also on the behavior of some individuals because they might need different help, professional help, like counseling, okay? But since we're talking about coaching, so let's talk about coaching. So the question is, what is coaching? So let's have our, you know, alignment in terms of how we define coaching, because you know, in the Philippines, coaching as a term is loosely used, and everybody just call themselves coach, and therefore that makes it very confusing. And therefore we need to find out, you know, well, how are we defining coaching here? So let's do a quick survey here. I would like to find out what is your definition, and let's see if we have a common ground here. Okay, so what is coaching to you? So it says here, is it teaching and instructing? Is it giving advice and telling the person what to do? Is it facilitating the person's thought process? Or is it drawing out from the person towards self-discovery? Okay, so vote now, guys. So let's see, how can I don't see the results here. Okay, so now I'm seeing it. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so we see here saying 10%, yes, 10% saying it's teaching and instructing, 13% giving advice and telling the person what to do, and 20% facilitating the thought process, and 57% drawing out from the person towards self-discovery. Wow, okay, so we have different perspectives and it's okay. It's okay, right. All right, so I think the winner, okay, now it disappeared. Okay, the winner is, I think the last one, Lawrence, right? Okay, there, okay. So the winner is drawing out from the person towards self-discovery, coming in very close here, is facilitating the person's thought process. Okay, of course, I subscribe to the definition of the International Coach Federation, you know, because it is the global certifying body, and this is also the global authority in the field of coaching, and it is considered the gold standard in the field of coaching. And ICF is saying that coaching is a non-directive, it is a facilitative approach, meaning it's not about telling the person what to do, it's not about giving advice, but it's facilitating the thought process of that individual. It's more about drawing out answers from the coachee, drawing out ideas, thoughts, feelings, you know, from the coachee. Hence, it's non-directive, okay? And therefore, because of that process, then the person will realize himself what he needs to do, what he wants, his strategies, his own solutions. He arrives at his own realizations and answers. Therefore, it is also a self-discovery process. And with this, you know, kind of interaction, then it becomes a two-way process. It's not one way. One way is telling the person what to do, advising, etc. Okay? And I'm so glad that based on that survey, majority of you are saying that it's really about self-discovery. It's really about non-directive and facilitative. So there is now higher awareness of coaching in the Philippines. So that's good news to me. And so if your definition is that coaching is giving advice, telling the person what to do, giving instructions, teaching the person, prescribing solutions, say goodbye to that definition. That is not coaching, okay? Say goodbye to that definition. So now, the question is, so why do you facilitate the thought process? Why do you have to draw out the answers from the coachee? Why not just tell him what to do? It's easier that way. Why do you have to draw out from him? Why do you need to evoke from him? So what is the value of doing that? So may I invite you again, go back to the chat box and probably in your own thinking, in your own thoughts, what do you think is the value of, you know, facilitating the thought process and evoking answers from the coachee versus telling the person what to do? So let's go back to the chat box and let's see.
This is going to be very interesting because there's a lot of definitions from different people.
Yes.
We're going to see how they differentiate that. So I'm seeing here ownership.
Yes.
Letting the person to decide. A lot of people talking about ownership and accountability.
Very nice.
And having two-way process. Still a lot of ownership, accountability, and commitment, empowerment, and realization.
Very nice. Okay. So bottom line is all about really commitment, accountability, ownership, you know, from the person. And yes, you're right. And on top of that, you know, when you draw out from the person, when you actually evoke from the person, so that will lead to self-awareness. Why self-awareness? Self-awareness because they look inward, they introspect, they self-examine, and therefore they become, you know, they realize things on their own, and therefore that will lead to some clarity. It will lead to knowing themselves better. And if there's self-awareness, then things are clearer for them, and therefore they can make conscious choices. With self-awareness, they can make conscious choices. And If that happens, then they can think better and they can actually act better. So that's the first one. Now, the second one, of course, you are not telling the person what to do, and therefore they are not just, receiving information or orders from you. You are evoking from them, so therefore that makes them think. And if you make them think, then you also improve their thinking capability. You also improve their ability to think better for themselves, which is actually needed nowadays, right? And if they think better, then they begin to analyze, they begin to critique, they think out of the box, they become creative, in their thinking. And isn't that the real essence of development? Development is not purely providing, a huge amount of knowledge, skills, expertise to another person. It's really teaching that person how to learn and how to think. Okay? If the person is able to think, if the person knows how to think, then you are able to develop him. And exactly that's what coaching does. And because the person knows, what he wants, he knows probably his aspirations, he knows what's important to him because of that self-awareness, and he knows his capabilities, then that will boost his confidence. Also with the realization that he can think, with the realization that he has that thinking ability, then that boosts his confidence. So that's the third one. And if there's confidence, then what do you expect? They would have the courage to move on. They're not, They are fearless. They're not afraid. They're not hesitating to act. And therefore, they can act with agility. They can act with, with intentions. And therefore, with that confidence, they can accomplish more. They can do more. And yes, you were saying it's all about ownership because it came from them. The answers came from themselves, and therefore, they're fully accountable to it. And if there's ownership and there is accountability and commitment, then naturally, passion follows. They will naturally go the extra mile. They will naturally, go beyond your expectations. They will naturally produce more because their adrenaline is actually naturally flowing out of them, and naturally there is passion in what they do and how they do things because of that full ownership. And therefore with that, then there is tenacity. They will have to do what it takes, and therefore they will have the resilience. And lastly, because again, they are thinking on their own, they're realizing things on their own, and they're figuring out solutions on their own, then they become independent thinkers. They become self-directed learners. And isn't that what we want in the workplace? Employees who are self-directed learners, they drive their learning. They're not just waiting for the initiative of the company. They're not just waiting for your initiatives or your training programs or your people development agenda, but they drive their learning. And that's what coaching is doing to an individual. And so look at that. Self-awareness, thinking capability, confidence, ownership, and self-reliance. Where will that lead to? It will lead the person to a different way of thinking, that he will think better with clarity, and therefore he will also behave better with agility, tenacity, resiliency, accountability. And with this, you're able to actually draw out a new behavior, a new person out of that person. There is now a new person, a better version of that person. And that is actually the type of a person that we need in times of uncertainties. This is the type of a person that we need to actually survive the new reality. This is the type of a person that we need, in the workplace. This is the type of a person we need to actually succeed, amidst uncertainties. So let's pause. Let's take a pause. And let me ask you, what have you realized so far? What have you realized so far? So please go to the chat box again, and then whatever it is that's showing up with you, just write it down. Ano yung mga nare-realize mo ngayon? So Lawrence?
Yes, so the first one that I have here would be, the first realization would be we need to coach more.
There.
And that coaching is very important for the success of the organization. Thank you for that, Des. We need to help others through coaching, and that they have a realization, Katrina specifically, that coaching is a two-way approach. Yeah, a lot of realizations from people. And they're also realizing that coaching is very much relevant in these trying times.
It is, actually, and we need coaching more than ever, actually, nowadays. Yeah. So thank you for those realizations, guys. So keep them coming, and let's move on. And so, how do we coach now? Given our context, so how do we coach? How can you coach? Now, coaching is a broad topic. I cannot build your skill, in 1 hour. And it involves a lot of skills, but I have chosen one specific skill because this is actually a skills building month for you, for PSTD. So I've chosen one specific skill. And unfortunately, I cannot also build your skill on this one because of our limited time. But I'm hoping that, given our discussions today, you will be picking up something that you can immediately apply, not just in the workplace, but also at home, in your relationships. And that skill is very basic in coaching. That skill is also very crucial. So basic, but crucial. Because again, it's all about self-discovery. It's all about growing up. And therefore, we will focus on asking questions, or in coaching, we call it asking powerful questions. So there. Now, I'm not saying that coaching equals asking questions, or asking questions equals coaching. It does not mean that when you're asking questions, you're already coaching. Or it does not mean that when you're coaching, you're just asking questions. That's actually a wrong and shallow understanding of coaching. However, because our default is, telling people what to do, our default is to give advice, this is also the most difficult skill to learn. Diba, you can relate whenever a friend goes to you and then he complains about probably his spouse, and then automatically ang sasabihin mo is, sabi ko kasi sa'yo, hiwalayan mo na yan eh. Tagal ko nang sinasabi yan sa'yo eh. Right? That's our default. We tell the person right away what we think. All right? So now, we will shift to asking questions. And what does, asking questions do? What does a question do to people? We know it. Whenever you're being asked of a question, that makes you think, right? And because of that, it can lead to eureka moments, light bulb moments, realizations. Questions can lead to innovations, great ideas, inventions, creations. I would like to believe actually that all the inventions and innovations and creations, in this world started with a question. And hence, asking question is the most critical. So now, what makes a coaching question different from the questions being asked by a job interviewer or a reporter or a mentor or a lawyer or a doctor or maybe a consultant? What's the difference between the two? Have you ever wondered what makes them different? There's a big, big difference. But first is, the power of your question lies in your ability to see, the ability of the people, or your ability to see people's innate capabilities. And that is the first step. For you to even ask a question is for you to believe that people have natural gifts, they have innate capacities. And therefore, you need to imbibe the coaching mindset, which says that any person, people are capable, that the person is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. And as long as we live, there will always be something, a talent, a skill, a strength that we can actually discover in ourselves. And let me tell you a story. So 2 weeks back, my wife and I were talking about our driver. So our driver was, has been with us for the last 20 years. And because of the pandemic, sadly, all of a sudden, we don't anymore need the services of a driver. And so we were having, some discussions around what we can do with him. And of course, one of the options is let him go. Another option is to keep him, but we give him a pay cut. Long story short, we decided to keep him. Due to humanitarian reasons, so we decided to evolve his role. And so I spoke with him 2 Fridays ago. I spoke with him and I was very honest. And so I told him, so, beginning today, ang trabaho mo is magiging all-around boy ka na. So ano yung all-around boy? So you will be the errand boy. Pag may mga lakad, may mga kailangang kunin, bilhin, etc. So you will be the errand boy. Another one is you will also contribute or help dito sa maintenance of our garden, except trimming the plants because our plants have different sizes and shapes. So we need a skilled person to do that. He will also be helping out in the cleaning, of our surroundings, and any other tasks that will be assigned to him from time to time. That job description. Okay, and so I was saddened by his response because his response was, magiging ano na lang po ako, sabi niya, grab driver na lang ako. So I was saddened by that, but knowing how the situation is, so I told him to think about it. Sabi ko, pag-isipan mo over the weekend, mag-usap ulit tayo. So that was Friday. Sabi ko sa kanya, we're going to talk again on Monday. And then let's see, what is your final decision? So here comes Monday. 2 Mondays ago. So ito na. I was looking for him because I would like to talk to him. And then our house help said na, nagtitrim na po siya ng mga halaman. I panic because, I know that the person should be skilled in doing that. But you know what? I rushed to the garden and then lo and behold, I was so surprised, to my pleasant surprise. He did it very well, as in perfectly well. And so the first thing that I uttered, may talent ka pala. Ba't hindi ko alam yan? May talent ka pala. So you know what? I realized that even if I've been coaching in the last 20 years, that I was not imbibing this coaching mindset enough. And I realized, that was a reminder for me that, as long as we live, there will always be something, a hidden skill, a hidden talent, that we can discover in ourselves. So before you can even formulate a powerful question, you should imbibe this mindset first, believing that the person is capable, that he has innate capacities. Because if you don't believe in that, then you will never even ask. You will just tell him what to do. Because ang tingin mo nga sa kanya ay hindi siya magaling. Wala siyang isip or bobo siya. Right? And so, let's take a pause for a while. And then probably let's take a look at what new skill or talent you have discovered, that you had because of this crisis. Ano yung mga skills or talents that you discovered, that you had, because of this crisis. Na nandun lang pala siya, nakatago, but because of this crisis, wow, lumabas siya. So, let's go to the chat box and let's find out. Siguro marami dyan yung pagluluto, pagkain.
That was actually the first one that came to the chat. So that was also expecting as well. So cooking. A lot of people said cooking.
Yeah.
And then sewing skills and
Oh, there.
gardening. So a lot of relatively skills that are very, very useful and very, very important in housemaking. Babysitting.
Oh, there. Wow, babysitting. Yes, that's a skill.
I also love here extra patience.
Oh,
So
yeah.
those are the things that they didn't think
Okay, thank you.
they have.
So, there, it's confirmed, right? I mean, it's confirmed.
Yeah, yes.
Confirmed talaga that, you know, everybody actually has that hidden potential. And, you know, in a single conversation, you can actually make the person realize that potential. And so, what are now the questions that you're going to ask? Okay, so be ready, guys. First, a powerful question should lead someone to reflect. Okay? That question should make them look inward within themselves and do some self-examination. Questions like, how do you feel about this crisis? How are you coping? What abilities do you have that can help you survive this crisis? What's holding you back? What is that? And what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated? What's most important to you? You know, so when you ask these questions, so the person will actually introspect, you know, and ponder these questions, and he will be actually realizing things for himself, and that will again raise his level of awareness, and therefore it will lead to clarity. Okay? Next. So there. Am I going too fast? Just let me know if I'm going too fast. Oh, by the way, let's put this into application. Okay? Let me be your coach now, and I'm going to ask you a powerful question, and let's see what your answers would be. Okay? So be ready. Think about this and really reflect on this question, and let's see what will show up with you. Given the challenges that you're facing, what keeps you going? Given the many challenges that you're facing right now, what keeps you going? So think about that. And then when you're ready, go to the chat box.
A lot of people would think that, oh, perhaps this is a no-brainer because they're very, very quick to go to the chat, and an overwhelming majority of the responses would be their family.
Their family.
Their sense of duty to the community, to their God, and their commitment to the family, to their family. So that would be the majority of the responses.
There you go. You know, now you have an anchor as you actually move and survive the new normal, and to succeed in that normal. I mean, that will be your anchor, and that will keep you moving, right? So let's go to the next question. Next characteristic of a powerful question. A powerful question should shift the person's perspective. Of course, we all have perspectives. And oftentimes, you know, during the crisis, you know, people operate on a perspective that kind of limits them. Or maybe it's something that actually moves them forward. But based on our experience coaching people during this pandemic, we heard a lot of perspectives that are quite limiting. Some self-limiting beliefs, some assumptions that they are making that are not necessarily true. So examples of this, work from home is not effective, which is not necessarily true. You know, I'm not capable of doing this. That's a perspective. Or, we won't be successful anymore. We will fail. Another one, my team won't be productive if I don't micromanage them because I don't see them anymore. They're working from home. So my team won't be productive, you know, with this kind of setup. You know, all these things. And so when people operate, on this perspective, then they miss the different or the other perspectives. They miss another way of looking at it. And therefore, if they're fixated on this, then they treat it as their factual truth. It becomes their gospel truth. And therefore, it paralyzes them. It slows them down in their behavior. And so, your question should be powerful enough to make them see the other side of the coin. So even if they're seeing this, make them see the other side of the coin by asking questions like, what's another way of looking at your situation? What's positive about the situation? What is this crisis teaching you? What are your blessings? See, especially if the person is looking at half empty, and then he just looks at what's missing and what's lacking, and therefore shift that perspective. So I had this experience. So I was coaching during this pandemic, a CEO who was feeling guilty. So why was he feeling guilty? Kasi nga daw, during the first week of the ECQ, he actually asked his frontliners to report for work, and he offered them additional incentives. And then he was telling me, nagigilty ako dahil, sabi niya, alam ko that they actually just reported for work because of the additional incentives. Yeah, and not because of their service orientation. I heard that. That's his perspective. And that's the assumption that he is making. That these people actually just reported for work simply because they will be receiving additional incentives and not necessarily, because of their service orientation. And so I told him, so you're telling me that your people reported for work because of the additional incentives. Is that a fact or is that a perception? Fact or perception? And then I followed up with a question, what's another way of looking at it? When they accepted that and they reported for work, does it necessarily mean that they were only after the additional incentives? And then he said, yeah, you're right. That's really, my bad, he said. Because who knows, some of them actually reported for work because of their service orientation, because of their genuine concern for the residents, because they are into property management business. And so he was telling me, okay, at the end of the conversation, I don't feel guilty anymore because I felt like I was bribing them, that I bribed them for them to report for work. So see, that's how perspectives work. So you need to challenge the thinking and you need to shift the perspective so that they will see, different interpretations, they will see different perspectives. And because of those different perspectives, then, possibilities will open up for them. Because oftentimes, if they are just focusing on one perspective and that happens to be a negative perspective, then they cannot move forward. They are crippled by that perspective or by that assumption. Okay? So, let's put this into a test again. Application tayo. So, ako ulit si coach nyo. If I were to ask you a powerful question, and the question is, what is this crisis teaching you? What will be your answer? What is this crisis teaching you? Let's go now. Chat box again.
We're getting here to become resilient. A lot
There.
of people are saying this, and that the opportunities are huge.
Very nice.
How to be adaptable and productive and prepared, flexibility. A lot of them talking about resilience and
Very nice.
innovation.
All right. So bottom line, what we're saying here is that if the person is actually seeing things, from a different perspective, then you have to challenge that. You have to shift their perspective so that they can see the other side of the coin, so that they see it in a positive light. All right, so let's move on to the next one, talking about possibilities. Your question should be exploring a lot of possibilities, especially nowadays. It's so hard because we're facing, a looming uncertainty, and therefore it's so hard to actually set goals. It's so hard to look into the future, right? And therefore, because of that, some people may be demotivated, etc. And so in your conversation, ask questions that will explore possibilities for them. Questions like, what possible scenarios do you see? Scenario A, scenario B, C, D, up to Z, or even more, okay? Or what opportunities do you see in each scenario? So make them see ano yung mga opportunities per scenario, and that will excite them again, that will actually make them look forward again to the future. Okay, and that can get them motivated again to seek for those opportunities. And also, what possibilities do you see in the midst of uncertainty? So the floodgate of opportunities will actually open for them, and because of that, then they will be more confident to move forward. Okay, next one. And this is very important because most conversations in the workplace revolve around work, revolve around what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? When are you going to submit that? When is your deadline? Etc., etc. Conversations are just too task focused and they become transactional. Okay? Now, a powerful question is not just focused on options, actions, deadlines, etc. It should also be focused on the person, okay? His mindset, his attitude. So don't focus mainly or solely on doing. There should also be questions on being, yung pagkatao niya. Have you ever observed people na they know naman what to do, clear naman sa kanila, but how come they're not doing it? How come they're not progressing? Because it's a mindset issue. It's an attitude issue. Now, most models, conversation models of coaching does not touch on mindset and attitude. It touches only on actions, options, etc. Okay? So you should be able to evoke, a new mindset and attitude from the person, especially nowadays, they are required to demonstrate a different kind of behavior, a different kind of mindset and attitude. So questions like, what mindset do you need in this situation? For you to survive the new reality, anong mindset ang kailangan meron ka? At ano yung mindset that you need to let go of? And what attitude should you have? At yung kabaliktaran niya, ano naman yung attitude that you need to let go of? And what kind of a person is required of you to succeed in the new normal? Anong klaseng pagkatao dapat meron ka? So it's not enough that you just talk about, so anong gagawin mo? Paano mo gagawin yan? And then, kailan ang deadline mo? So kailangan meron din yung, anong klaseng pagkatao dapat meron ka para magawa mo yan? Because if you miss this out, then your conversation becomes very transactional and it does not become transformational. Remember that coaching is actually eliciting a new person, a new behavior from the person, then it should be transformational to begin with. And asking questions that evoke new mindsets and attitudes makes it transformational. All right? So, application time. I would like to find this out. I'm now your coach. And what is your answer here? What kind of a person is required of you to succeed in the new normal? So go back to the chat box and write down, ano yung klaseng pagkatao dapat meron ka? So that you'll be able to not just survive, but really succeed. You will come out victorious, in the new normal. What is that? So let's see, Lawrence.
I'm getting a number of people saying being a positive person.
There.
That's the first one. The second one would be being optimistic.
Very nice.
And then the third one would be, this is, I think the favorite would be being resilient.
Being resilient. Yep. That's the favorite. That's the word for the day, every day.
I agree. I agree.
Right? Okay, nice one. And this is actually what will give you the fuel, to move forward and face the uncertainty. And this will actually give you the inner drive, the being, yung pagkatao mo. That's very important. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is also very important. Coaching is all about bringing out the best in the individual. And during these radical times, your question should create that jolt so that people will think bigger and act bigger. Don't just ask the question, so what will you do? Because it might elicit a response that is quite incremental. Isang maliit na action lamang yung maisip nila. So change your words. Okay? Change your words. It's not enough that you ask, anong gagawin mo? Paano mo gagawin? No. All right? You have to stretch their capabilities. You need to challenge, the way they think. And you ask questions like, what radical change is required of you in these critical times? So we are in critical times. Therefore, what radical change should happen in you? Okay? What breakthrough can you create? Aside from cooking pandesal, and baking all of this, aside from planting in your backyard, what breakthrough can you create? And the last one is, and this is not the last one. I mean, there are a lot of, questions that you can ask. I'm just giving you some examples. What bold step can you take to succeed in the new normal? So it's not enough ng tanong mo lang is anong gagawin mo. But, put a descriptor. Anong bold step ang gagawin mo? What's a quantum leap for you? What's a moonshot strategy for you? Because that is being required by our times. All right? So there. So, we're running out of time. I don't want to play the coach now, okay? But maybe you can ask yourself, on top of the many things that you're doing already, I mean, what bold step can you take to succeed in the new normal? And that's something for you to think about. Okay? And lastly, a powerful question should move the person forward. You don't go back anymore to what has happened because that's immaterial. I mean, if you go back to what has happened, just pursue the learning there and just ask, anong natutunan mo, and then move forward. But when they move forward, you also elicit some concrete actions. Okay? So you can ask questions like, so what concrete actions will you take beginning today or maybe beginning tomorrow? All right? Or, what's a quick win for you? Ano yung gagawin mo na, low-hanging fruit? So meaning, immediately may magagawa na, mayroon ka ng accomplishment. When are you going to accomplish this? Specific time, date, etc. This is also very important. And how will you monitor your progress? Okay? Because there is a follow-through, and there's follow-through, it will keep the person moving forward. And then also, what support do you need? Making the person realize that he has a lot of enablers, external enablers, family support, support in the workplace, community, group support, etc., etc. All right? So with that, the summary is this. So when you ask questions in a coaching conversation, it should lead the person to deep reflection. It should shift the perspective of the person so that he can see other, perspectives. He can actually see the panoramic view. He can see the uncharted territories. He will not be fixated on a specific mindset that becomes his gospel truth. Okay? And the question should also evoke mindsets and attitudes, not just about doing. What will you do? How are you going to do it? It should evoke, a different person, how he will behave differently. And it should stretch the capability of the person. Okay, it should challenge the person to think big. There should be some jolting effect there. Okay? And then, very importantly, move the person forward with concrete actions. So there. Okay, and additional tips for you. First is show genuine concern. And, there's no substitute for this. If you're sincere in helping people, that will definitely show up. Okay, and it will establish your connection with the person. And then listen from the heart. And when you listen from the heart, your senses will open up. There's sensory acuity, meaning all your senses are ready to receive the person. And therefore, you will not just listen to what is being heard, but you're also listening to what is not being said. Okay, you're listening to both what is not being said, and you're listening to what is being said and what is not being said. Okay, listen to the tone of the voice, etc. Okay, and if they need airtime, allow them to vent. You know, their frustrations, maybe their sadness and anxieties, their fears. Okay, if needed. Silence is very powerful in a coaching conversation because that will give the person time and space to introspect. And don't be judgmental. Suspend all your judgments or your own biases. Okay? Huwag mong isipin na, ay, ang simple lang. Because he has a different circumstance, you know, different from yours. And then empathize. Put yourself in his shoes for you to fully understand where he's coming from, but remain detached. Because the thing about empathizing is you also sympathize, and therefore if you sympathize, then you get hooked into the issue, and therefore you also think about your own issues, and so you get disconnected. You can no longer be fully present there in that conversation. And then very important is you also champion them, okay? Make them feel that you believe in their capability and that they can do it. And lastly, in your conversation, the world needs positivity. The person needs your positivity. So you infect them with your high emotional energy, with your happy hormones, So be a source of positivity to anyone you deal with, not just with a person that you're coaching, in fact. All right? And so with that, I am ready for your questions.
Thank you so much, Julius, for sharing with us a lot of things about coaching and how coaching and why coaching is very important in these uncertain times. So perhaps we can take around 2 to 3 short questions. I'll start with the relatively easier ones. The first one would be, does one need to be a subject matter expert to become a coach?
So again, going back to the definition of coaching, it's facilitative is non-directive, and therefore you are the process expert. The process of making the person aware, the process of making him think, the process of helping him think better, you become a thinking partner of that person. And therefore, it's not necessary that you have the content. Because if you have the content, if you're the content expert, most likely what's going to happen is you influence his thinking. You tell the person what to do, you give the solutions to the person. And that is no longer coaching when you actually prescribe and you tell the person what to do coming from your expertise, then that is coaxing. It's not coaching.
Got it. Thank you. And then this one is a very interesting question pertaining to perhaps our word for the day. So people have been asking about resiliency. And the question here is two-pronged. The first one is, how do you build self-resiliency as a coach? And then the second one would be, how do you then build resiliency to those that you are coaching?
Yeah, so to me, resiliency is actually all about emotional management, of your ability to manage your frustration, your ability to manage your self-limiting beliefs, ability to manage your negative thoughts and emotions. And therefore, you can take charge of the situation. So it requires self-awareness. It requires awareness for me to actually determine, how I am being affected by my own emotion. Like my emotional energy is going down. I can no longer think clearly. I'm becoming irritable, etc. So it starts there with self-awareness. And then after self-awareness, then I do something about it. Okay? So first is my own self-dialogue, so I remind myself to actually be in charge of the situation. That's one. And then I develop my own lifestyle, my own activities, to actually manage it. The negative thoughts and negative emotions that's crippling me probably. Okay, what could be that lifestyle? So pwedeng gardening yan, di ba? Yung mga cooking na yan, etc. Okay, that will keep you in check. All right. And then also support from people around you. And most importantly, anchoring everything that you're doing to your bigger why. What's your purpose? What's your bigger why? Ano ba yung purpose? Why do you even exist in this world? And so that will build resilience. Okay. And so I do that as a coach, and I will also help the person realize that I coach, for him to achieve that self-awareness and for him to realize also, those things that I mentioned. So that's how I would do it. But again, it requires a skill. So I cannot build your skill again, as I said, because our time is limited. So you may want to join my full-blown program so that I can build your skill.
Thank you so much, Coach Julius. So I know that we still have a lot of questions in the Q&A tab, but unfortunately we are pressed for time. But we will be forwarding these questions to Julius so that he can browse through it and perhaps provide his answer for when we send to you the post-evaluation, so that everyone could also see his thoughts and ideas regarding these questions.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Lawrence.
No problem. And thank you so much, Julius. So perhaps let me spend a few seconds to also give my takeaway. First, I believe that, again, we should start by thinking and believing that people really are capable. And that capability can and must be further developed through, one of the means would be coaching, given that coaching is a very impactful and important skill to develop, especially in these trying times. So thank you for that, Julius. And I loved how our focus today is asking powerful questions. And you were able to give us quite a number of these powerful questions throughout the session. So that's very subtle, and that's very perfect in the context of our topic for the afternoon. So again, on behalf of the Philippine Society for Talent Development, thank you so much, Julius, Coach Julius, for spending your afternoon with us today.
It's my pleasure. And, I'm really very happy to also extend my help, by way of doing this. And I would like to really just end this session by, asking another coaching question for everyone to actually think about and reflect on. Okay? And you don't need to go to the chat box again, but you might want to give me your answers privately. How will you reinvent yourself as you face the new reality? Okay, for you to think about. And so with that, thank you so much for this opportunity, and let us actually promote the gift and spread the gift of coaching to everybody. And let's make this crisis a transformative experience, not just by coaching, probably just asking a coaching question to anyone, or maybe just being coach-like in our conversations. So thank you so much, PSTV. Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you, Luz, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much,
everyone.
Yes, again. So thank you to the 310 participants that we have here on Zoom, and around 70-80 people in Facebook Live. So we have around an accumulated of around 400 people learning together from home. So again, thank you so much. My name is Lawrence as your moderator. Thank you, Julius. And I'm going to hand the floor over now to our anchor, Luz Mercurio.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you very much, Julius. For me, I learned that a great coach should have the ability to see the innate capability of a person to create and solve problems. And I really enjoyed the value of creating powerful questions. And we really appreciate your presence, Julius. I hope we can invite you again in some other webinars that we offer here at PSTV. Now, for the participants, please join us on June 25. It's gonna be mentoring this time at 2 p.m. with Maribel Aglipay. And then on June 27, we'll have chillax session. We'll have panelists and a moderator discussing what are the benefits and challenges when you mentor people or when you coach people. And then for our dear teachers, on July, we have what we call Digi Teach, and we have 8 fantastic speakers for you to inspire you to move to digital learning facilitation. And then, we curated topics focused on your total well-being and prepare you for the first week, prepare your mind. Second week, we have topics to prepare your hearts. Third week, to prepare your hands as you develop your skills as educators further. And of course, preparing your spirit to be better educators in the new normal. So for more information, visit facebook.com/mypstd, and we will be with you for the entire July, dear teachers. We care for you, and we really appreciate all the sacrifices you've been doing to educate and make people, children and adults learn. Okay, so we'd like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. Have a meaningful day ahead. Goodbye.